Um, and welcome everybody to our nutrition webinar with Erin Reese. Erin is a dietitian with the Spina Bifida Center at the Boston Children's Hospital. She studied nutrition at Boston University and has previously worked in oncology and research. Outside of work, she enjoys cooking, reading, and spending time outdoors. She's grateful for the opportunity to join us today to talk about her favorite topic, nutrition. And we have Erin to thank for the delicious beet pancake recipe that we all enjoyed on Valentine's Day. So thank you very much for that. So I'll turn it over to you, Erin. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for having me. This is so much fun and not a thing that I get to do very often. So I'm really happy to be here today. So yeah, Jane and Julia sent me a bunch of questions ahead of time, and I could dive into those, but if anyone who's here with us today has any specific questions that we want to start with, I'm happy to start there.
I had one question that I thought of last night.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of questions, but I'll start with the water one. I've read different things about how much water you're supposed to drink a day, and it's the one that is like half of your body weight in ounces. But is that good for someone with something like kidney reflux?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think there's a lot of information out there that's like kind of these general rules of thumb, like, oh, take half your body weight in ounces, and that's how much water you should aim for. But it is like a pretty individualized thing. And so I would say if you have like something related to like kidney health or heart health, you're going to want to talk to your doctor or a dietitian to help get you like a personalized recommendation for how much fluid you need. Kind of the general rule of thumb I'll give for an adult is like 2 liters a day is usually a pretty good recommendation, just kind of for in general, but that can be really, really individual.
And I know Julie and I talked yesterday about a question. I don't know if you had sent that to her or if that was.
I did, Heather, but
okay, I can't remember exactly the way it was, way we worded it, so I'll just let her answer it.
Okay. I'm seeing something come through from Sarah in the chat. I have a question about eggs. Good, bad, both. Am I eating too many eggs? When I track them in my fitness pal, it's like, whoa, 2 eggs, slow down. Okay. So that's a great question. I think for a long time we've heard, eggs are kind of get stuck in this like maybe bad category because they have too much cholesterol. But what we've found now through research is that, having 1 or 2 eggs a day is not necessarily gonna totally drive up your cholesterol levels. And so I think thinking about it in terms of balance, if eggs are, one of the only foods that you're eating, trying to get a little bit more variety in. But if you're having 1 or 2 eggs in a day, it's not the end of the world.
And Erin, does it make a difference if you're using egg whites versus eggs?
That's a great question. Yeah, particularly in terms of like cholesterol and fat, eliminating out the egg yolk will eliminate a lot of that. The egg whites is mostly like the protein, it's pretty low in calories. And so that's a way to kind of like, if you are monitoring your cholesterol levels, having, maybe you're making scrambled eggs, eliminating one of the egg yolks and then doing like 1 whole egg or 1 whole egg and 2 egg whites. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And those
I don't eat an alarming amount of eggs. I don't want everyone to think I'm eating like 12 eggs a day. But the MyFitnessPal thing was just like, oh boy, you're getting crazy here. You had 2 eggs. You got to stop now. You can't eat anything for the rest of the day.
Yeah, she keeps yelling at me for different things too. I'm like, wait, I didn't. Okay, fine.
I think that's
I think too with that app, when it sets like, certain goals for how many grams of certain foods, like carbs, protein, fat. And so something like eggs is going to sort of have protein, but have the fat. So it's like too much fat, but really it's, when it comes to eggs, in my understanding, but I'll refer to Erin, felt that was like a healthier fat, which you can reduce with egg whites, but
I think it's
Yeah.
so funny when you start tracking stuff in the app, it's like kind of passive aggressive towards you, where like a thing will pop up and it'll just say, so your goal today was to eat less fat than this amount or something like that. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's how it's going to be.
I think that brings up a really great point about the tracking apps, and the tracking apps can be really helpful, but I think like kind of taking all of that with like a grain of salt, like, okay, thanks for your little reminder there, but like I'm still gonna kind of eat, I'm not gonna let this drive every single food choice that I make or make me feel bad about like the food choices that I'm making, and using it kind of as a general guide to, maybe you're taking a look at, you're watching calories closely, or you're trying to watch fiber, or you're trying to watch protein. And so paying a little bit more mind to those specific things over like letting it be like, you're getting way too much of, something that maybe is not quite as of concern to you.
I drink this like high protein, like low sugar like shake that like my nutritionist thinks is great, and like I use a different tracking app that classifies it as a red food, so it's like like bad, and so like I just have to like kind of like ignore that and be like, yeah, like moderation, like whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point too. And with a lot of these apps, they have, things that they will focus on. So yeah, some of the apps kind of specify things as like red, yellow, and green for like bad foods, okay foods, and good foods, but it's not necessarily like applicable, a blanket application to every single person. So.
I have another question, kind of in regards to the app. It said, like, it keeps yelling at me because it's telling me I'm not eating enough calories during the day. But I've also heard that if you're a wheelchair user, you should be eating less calories. And even if I'm not supposed to be eating less calories, if I eat the number of calories that it recommends, I sometimes end up feeling sick, so I don't eat too much.
Yeah. And that's, where being in tune with your body and kind of your hunger and fullness is important, and letting that drive kind of how you're eating a little bit more versus just saying like, I need to kind of check a box because this app is telling me I need to eat, this specific thing.
Is there a certain number of calories that someone in a chair is supposed to eat versus someone who isn't in a chair?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was one that had come through. So, and again, it's super individualized. So it's hard to kind of give like a blanket, this is what fits for everyone. Kind of in general, wheelchair users might have lower caloric requirements during the day, but it is going to depend a lot on your activity level too. So if you're highly active, your calorie needs are going to be higher. And so those tracking apps, a lot of times, you'll put in your height and your weight, you'll put in your age, and it will kind of give you a number. But, kind of using your goal, like if your goal is to maintain your weight, kind of keeping an eye on your weight and letting that guide you, and saying, oh, I'm noticing that my weight is going up, and so I think I need to cut my calories back a little bit, or I'm noticing my weight is going down, so I should probably work towards eating a little bit more, or my weight's been stable, so the amount that I'm eating is working for me in that way. Just because it can be hard to get kind of like a specific number that really works, that's kind of exactly accurate, which I know is not a very fun answer.
No, that's okay. I was just curious if there was like a ballpark, because I've read different things, like you should eat 900 or you should eat less. Most of them just say you should just eat less, and then I was like, okay, but how much less?
But what does, yeah, exactly. And that's a great thought. It is hard to kind of give like a general rule with that. I would say 900 calories seems pretty low. And so, yeah, I would say that feels a little low. I usually don't recommend going lower than like especially for an adult, less than like 1200 calories a day,
Okay.
because it's really hard to get kind of all the other nutrition that you need in if you're eating that low of a calorie amount.
Okay.
So, and I guess this can kind of tie into some of the other questions. Some of the questions asked about kind of like timing of meals during the day and kind of when to eat your first meal. And that's a super individualized thing too. Like the, timing of meals, there's not necessarily like a perfect schedule that applies to everyone. But thinking about having your calories be spread out throughout the day. So not having, all your calories at one particular time, and kind of spreading your calories throughout the day so that you've got energy coming in throughout the day to help fuel you. There was, I know someone had asked about kind of some ideas for like a small breakfast if you're not super hungry in the mornings. And well, I'll tie back to that in a second, but so just some ideas for like a small breakfast. Some folks really like it's hard to get it's hard to eat like solid foods right when you wake up, but doing something like a shake sometimes is a thing that is well tolerated early on. I know, Jennifer, you mentioned you use like a particular like shake, like a nutrition shake.
Yeah.
Do you usually have that as like a breakfast, or when do you have that during the day?
It depends. I usually like do that like in the middle of the day, like when I'm busy or like after I work out.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
Great. Yeah. And so sometimes using those shakes as like a meal replacement. There are a couple of products I like. There's something called Carnation Light Start. Is it okay if I share my screen? I can show. I pulled up a couple of examples of some stuff. Does it work? Okay.
Yeah, you should be all set now.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you all see this? All right. So this is a product I like. It's just like a powder packet. You can mix it with any kind of milk. And so if you're like, I don't really want to eat something solid in the morning, this can be a good kind of like shake type drink to make. Go ahead.
Is that different than the like the Carnation instant breakfast type thing? Because I use those and they ended up making me gain weight.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So this is it's a similar type of a product, but it's a little bit lower in calories. It's
Okay.
lower in sugar. If it's something that you're adding kind of on top of what you're already eating, it's something that can lead to weight gain. But if it's something that's kind of like I notice that I don't really eat breakfast, or I skip breakfast, or I'm just looking for kind of like other options for breakfast. This can be a good one.
And it wasn't the same one as that one, so it was definitely a different product, but it was like an instant breakfast type of thing. So
Yeah.
this one is one I might try.
Yeah, this one it's a little bit lower in calories than kind of the original one. Some other shakes out there that some of my patients really like. This is Boost Women. It's compared to like other Boost supplements, it's lower in calories, but it's got a good amount of protein. It's got a bunch of like vitamins and minerals added to it. So again, if you're looking for something that's like kind of like I keep skipping breakfast and I know I need to eat something, or I know I need to get something in my body, or I'm just looking for some other kind of ideas. This could be one to try. And then Ensure Light is another one that some of my patients like. And this one's pretty low in calories, but has a good amount of protein and also vitamins and minerals and such. So that can be something like if you're not a fan of, having like solid foods kind of first thing in the morning, but you're just looking for like a drink or a shake or something. Just some ideas. I also really like those. There are a lot of companies now sell these little oatmeal cups that you can just kind of like add water to. And those can be kind of a quick, easy breakfast, or like an individual yogurt cup that you could have with like fruit, or with a little bit of like granola or cereal. Because it can be hard, like if you're not super hungry, but you know you need to eat something to get started. Just having something small is a great idea, and having something easy too. Kind of going back a little bit to the idea of like spreading your calories out throughout the day. Something I find with some of my patients is that they tell me like, I'm not really hungry in the morning, but then we talk a little bit more about kind of how they're eating throughout the day. And what they tell me is they're having like a little breakfast, and then they might have like kind of a regular sized lunch. And then by the end of the day, they're feeling really, really hungry. And so they're having like a really big dinner. And sometimes then also it leads to like a lot of late night snacking, because we're kind of like trying to make up for what we didn't get in throughout the day. And then what I find happens is then they wake up the next day and they're like, I don't really feel hungry for breakfast, but that kind of makes sense, right? Because you had a really big dinner, you're snacking late at night, and then you wake up and you're like, I'm not super hungry, but it's because you're eating a decent amount later in the day. And so what I like to encourage patients to kind of work towards, so I call this being like a triangle eater. So you've got like the little breakfast, you got a medium lunch, and then you've got like a bigger dinner and some snacks at night. Is trying to think about being more like a cone eater. So kind of flipping that triangle upside down. And so working towards having a little bit of a bigger breakfast, having some snacks throughout the day, and then having a little bit of a smaller dinner. And this way you're really kind of fueling what you're doing throughout the day. Because obviously, we don't want to go to bed on an empty stomach. Our bodies are still, there's a lot of healing and all that our bodies are doing while we're sleeping. And it's a long time that we're sleeping for. So we do want to make sure that we're eating something at the end of the day, but we're being the most active throughout the day. So kind of thinking more about front loading what you're eating. And then that way we're not feeling as kind of hungry later in the day too. Looks like we got another. Oh, folks signing off. Okay. Well, thanks. Any questions or thoughts about that, or does that kind of does that resonate with anybody on the call?
Don't eat breakfast. I have to force myself to eat breakfast.
Yeah. I think someone had asked kind of when should you eat your first meal during the day? And yeah, that's pretty individualized. I usually try to recommend eating within the first couple hours of waking up. And again, kind of thinking more about if you're not feeling super hungry, were you eating more kind of late at night? And then that's kind of making you not feel as hungry when you get up. Some of us, we just don't feel super hungry in the morning. That's just how our bodies are. We take a little time to wake up, but trying to get something in within the first couple hours of waking. Someone else had asked how many meals should you eat during the day? And I guess you can probably predict at this point what I'm going to say. It's pretty individual. So it kind of depends on the person. But I usually recommend trying to do a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then doing snacks in between as you need. And my usual rule of thumb is not going more than 4 hours in between meals, because that's where we tend to get like really, really hungry. And then at that next meal, we might overeat a little bit because we're just like, we're too hungry. So trying to have your meals kind of spaced out so that there's not too much time in between, and maybe having a snack if you need to in between.
So one of my other issues is needing to eat more like fruits and vegetables, but at the same time not having that mess with my bowel program, and being able to go about my day.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah. Usually what I'll recommend with patients is kind of slowly adding in a little bit more of like the fruits and veggies. So if you've got kind of like a certain amount that you're eating right now, but you want to eat a little bit more, starting with a little portion of, a fruit or a vegetable, and kind of seeing how that affects you. And if you're feeling like, okay, that went well, I want to try something else, and then adding another thing or increasing the amount that you're having at once, and kind of just tracking how that affects you, because certain fruits and vegetables are going to affect you differently, and then amounts are going to affect you differently too. But the nice thing is that our bodies do adjust over time to the amount of fiber that we're eating. But we have to kind of slowly change it, because if we make like a big drastic change, like let's say maybe you're eating like one fruit, one vegetable a day right now, and then tomorrow that's kind of like what you've been doing for a long time, and then tomorrow you end up having like 3 fruits and 2 vegetables, and like that's just too much, like it's too big of a change. So adding things in kind of slowly and seeing how they affect your body and letting your body kind of adjust to that can help to make that transition a little bit easier. And thinking too about kind of like timing of things too. So some of my patients will tell me like they don't necessarily like experimenting too much with like diet changes during the week, but the weekends are, times that they're home more, they have a little bit of like a less kind of strict schedule. So it's a little easier to try some different things.
Right.
I have a question with the fiber. I have a 14-year-old, and the doctor just said she should try some fiber. We're just getting her bowels kind of working right.
Okay.
What are the best fibers to start with?
That's a great question. So usually I like to suggest like starting with fruits and vegetables. There are, other foods that are high in fiber. You can use fiber supplements too. But I usually recommend starting with fruits or vegetables. There aren't necessarily like specific fruits or vegetables that are kind of like the best, just because everybody is going to respond kind of differently. But if your child is right now eating maybe, if they're not having any fruits or vegetables right now, just starting with adding, one fruit or one vegetable each day, and then kind of seeing how that goes, and then trying to gradually increase from there.
Okay. Thank you.
I did have a question about easy ways to track portion sizes. I know that kind of goes back, well, it can be helpful with like thinking about portions of fruits and veggies, but also going back to like if you're using an app and you don't necessarily want to be like measuring things out, or getting your measuring cups out every single time you're having a meal. So one of my favorite references is this one. So it's like eating with your hands. So the front part of your fist, you can think about that as kind of like a reference for a half of a cup. A whole fist, you can think about as like a reference for 1 cup. That's usually like a good portion size for like a starch or a vegetable. The palm of your hand is about 3 to 4 ounces when you're thinking about like a protein food. That's usually a good portion size to start with too. The size of your thumb can be about 2 tablespoons. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of variability depending how big your hands are, but it as a kind of general idea, I do really like this. So yeah, your thumb being about 2 tablespoons, and then the tip of your finger being about a teaspoon. I find that to be a helpful way to kind of track portions.
So your palm is 3 to 4 ounces, which is the meat.
Yeah, yep. Here, I can put that back up. I can also send this to Jean and Julia after too, so you guys can have this as a reference.
That would be wonderful. Thanks. We can
Thank
share
you.
it in the group.
Yeah. For those who are using apps right now, are there ways that you are tracking your portion sizes?
Reading the labels
Reading labels.
and seeing what the portion size is, and if I'm home, I'll measure out things.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm using measuring cups.
Measuring cups. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes that can be, kind of a good way to start. And then kind of over time, once you do it enough, you're kind of able to eyeball things a little bit more. You're like, okay, I know that this is kind of what a cup looks like, particularly for those foods that you're eating pretty often.
In like an ideal world, like how many like servings of fruits and vegetables should we have per day? Like I know you're gonna say it's individual, but
you're on to me.
Just like in general, like how many should I be like working up to?
Towards? Yeah, I usually say like a general start. Ooh, can you guys hear me okay? Oh, okay. Sorry, I just got a little audio feedback. I usually say like 5 a day as a good goal. And those can be, 5 like, individual kind of like pieces of things, or, you can think about a serving as like a half of a cup to 1 cup. So a half a cup for kind of most vegetables. But if you're talking about like leafy greens, like lettuce or something, your portion size could be like 1 cup. Or then like, yeah.
If you're doing like strawberries or something, like how many strawberries, or like how many cups or whatever?
Yeah, for strawberries, I would say, half a cup to a cup, which would probably end up being somewhere around like maybe like 8 to 12 or so, 6 to 12 strawberries.
Is something like iceberg lettuce like even like worth eating? Like does it have like any nutrients, or is it good like just for the fiber?
That's a great question. So something like iceberg lettuce, it's going to be pretty low in fiber. I have a patient who calls it crunchy water, which I think is, it doesn't have like a ton of nutritional value. It doesn't have a ton of fiber. But I think, for some folks, that's really kind of like, that's the lettuce that they like. And so if they're like, I'm not going to eat a salad if it's going to be a kale salad, but I will eat it if it's, iceberg lettuce. And so, if that's kind of the difference, like if that makes or breaks it for you, then I say like go for the iceberg lettuce, because that's also going to help you get in the other things in the salad. So maybe that's going to help you to eat some carrots and some peppers and some cucumber. And so if that's kind of what makes or breaks it for you, then I would say it is worth eating.
But like the baby spinach would be like a better choice if I'm having salad.
I think so. Yeah. Kind of just like
What about cabbage?
cabbage. That's a great one. I love cabbage as a salad base because it's really high in fiber, and it does have a lot of like nutrients in it, particularly like the red cabbage. The different colors of fruits and vegetables correspond to kind of the different nutrients that are in them. So that's why we like to get kind of a variety of colors. And the nutrients that are in that like red cabbage are not in a lot of other like, I know a lot of other fruits or vegetables. But that also can be kind of a really like cost-effective way to like have like a salad base basically, because like the cabbage is pretty low cost, and you can buy like the shredded cabbage and make that as like kind of a salad base. So yeah, it definitely has a more like distinct flavor, but it's got a really good amount of fiber in it. Thinking about kind of like the iceberg lettuce question, some of my patients will tell me like they don't necessarily like to eat like fruits or vegetables because they don't like to eat them plain. And so, you know, if you like to have like a little bit of a dip with your veggies, and kind of like that's going to be the thing that makes or breaks it for you. Like if you're going to go for like the Doritos or you're going to go for the carrots, like if having like a little bit of hummus with your carrots means you're going to pick the carrots, then like go for that. Like I think food should taste good, and we can pick kind of different dips and different things that can kind of help us to eat those fruits and veggies, and can help make them kind of more palatable and help us make that choice versus picking something like chips or something.
They have a new hummus. It's the chocolate.
Just got that. I had it last night.
I
It's
love
good.
that.
Yes.
It's so good. It tastes like chocolate sauce.
Yeah.
It is very delicious.
Does
Yes.
it go with carrots though?
Well, you put it with apples.
It's
Yes.
chocolate. It goes with anything.
I eat it with pretzels. Okay, I'm bad.
Same.
That could be a great thing to have with like strawberries. If you're thinking like,
Yes, my
like usually I'm eating like a bowl of ice cream at night, but like I really want a sweet treat. So if you have like strawberries with a little bit of like a chocolate hummus dip,
Yeah.
that can be kind of like a
Hummus.
healthy alternative. Yeah. And same thing with like dressing. So some of my patients, like they love ranch dressing. They're like, I'm not going to eat my, my carrots or my celery or anything without ranch. And there are different, there are light ranch dressings, and you can think about kind of the amount that you're using too, so that you're not getting like a ton of calories from your dips, but it helps us to make that choice to have some more, to have more fruits and veggies.
I like using little bowls. So everything, like when I make dinner, smaller plate, fill it up. It looks like it's more food, but it really isn't.
Yeah, I think that can be a great tip. Or thinking about kind of like portioning things out into bowls. So we're not just like, because I'm very much a proponent of like all foods can fit and everything in moderation, but being mindful of the portion sizes of some of our foods. So for something like potato chips, measuring out like the amount before versus just kind of like eating out of the bag, because then we can just kind of like keep going and we don't realize how much we would be having.
Well, I bought the little snack bags and the little containers. So that's what I was doing. I was taking like peanut butter and putting how much in the container.
That's
So
a
it's
great
easier.
idea.
You just take that instead of going in and scooping.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip. And a lot of companies have kind of caught on to that and will sell stuff now in individual portions.
But it's cheaper to do it yourself.
It is. You're very right. Liv, I think you were going to say something. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
If I did potato chips and ranch dressing, does that make them healthy?
I would not say that.
My mom's giving me a look that clearly means no.
Nice try. I like the effort though.
Yeah. More safety tips for foods that you might otherwise not want to eat, like a fruit or veggie.
As far as in like, and it's not really an issue. It was just something that I noticed that like preparing them, like preparing a whole salad, especially since I am on my own, so I'd just would be preparing a salad for me, got annoying because I would prepare an entire salad and then end up throwing a lot of it away because it went bad quickly.
Yeah.
So I found that like the salad kits sometimes work. Does that?
Yeah, I was just trying to pull that up. I had meant to put them in one of my tabs earlier. I think those are fantastic. And
it also got me eating kale, which I wasn't doing before.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're a really fantastic thing. And so I don't know if folks have seen these, but they're in the kind of salad section of the supermarket, kind of where you'll see like the bagged lettuce, and they've got usually, it's like some sort of salad base and then usually some other kind of like mix-ins. That can be a great way to, like a great, easy, quick way to help yourself prepare a salad. And using some of the other stuff that might be in that section of the grocery store too, like, shredded carrots, or oftentimes like the grocery stores will have like pre-cut up like veggies and stuff like that.
I have to like either like buy them like pre-cut or like cut them like during like a meal prep, like session, because I'm not going to, like do them for like an individual like meal or, like for like a snack. It's too much work. I have to, like always, like do them, like ahead of time and have them, like ready for the meal, like, or the snack, so I can make that choice like in the moment, especially, like living alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And like our lives are often so busy too, that it's like you're like, I got 5 minutes, I just got to grab something. And so having that stuff kind of like easy and ready to go can help you to make those healthier choices.
I buy them, like pre-made, but I also like to, like if I want to save, like some money that week, I'll get them, like as is, and then I'll like come home and turn on like my music and I'll do like a chopping and like prep session, and that can be fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. That can be a really great way to kind of set yourself up for success. Making the time for that. I also really love frozen veggies. I think they're already washed, they're already cut up. There's something that's like really easy to kind of keep on hand. And then you can kind of add those into a meal pretty easily. So let's say, you've got kind of your protein, you've got your starch, and then you're like, oh, I don't have any fresh veggies, or like, I don't really feel like cutting anything up right now. You can just reach into the freezer and grab some frozen veggies. And they're super easy to cook, even just in the microwave. So a lot of companies now have gotten kind of like fancy with their frozen vegetables. So they've got a bunch of good like mixes that are pretty tasty. And it's also like a pretty cost-effective way to get some fruits and veggies too. A lot of times you can get kind of like a bunch of bags of frozen veggies on sale, or a lot of stores will sell them for, $1 or so a piece. This can be great things to keep on hand.
I found that's an easy way. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I get the ones that even if they say steam bag, I'll still cut them open, use what I need, and rubber band them shut again.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because oftentimes it's like it might be like a, a family size bag or something, but maybe you're just cooking for one, or you don't really want all of that.
Yeah.
So you can definitely just cut it open and pour out what you like.
And they're easy to make like stir fries and stuff with too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Going to stir fries, soups.
You should roast them. That like brings out like a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
I started putting like frozen cauliflower in my smoothies for
That's
like
a great
a month
idea.
Oh,
spinach. Yeah, I got that
That's
cooked somewhere.
That's a great idea, especially because cauliflower won't necessarily have like a super strong flavor too. And that's going to be a great way to get the fiber in too, because cauliflower is really high in fiber. That's a great idea. I know I had sent that recipe for beet pancakes. You can also throw some beets into smoothies. That's a good way to get some veggies in. Or adding things like spinach or, kale or something to a smoothie.
Can you resend that recipe?
Yeah, absolutely. Some folks had sent some questions too about like thoughts on like frozen or pre-made meals. And I think there are kind of like, there's some good choices or like kind of better choices in terms of the frozen meals. Frozen meals oftentimes do get a bad rap. They can be really high in salt, or they can be really high in fat. Some of the ones I really like, let me share my screen again. I can also send some links to these things too afterwards, so you guys have that. But these like healthy choice steamers, they have a bunch of different ones, but the nice thing now, a lot of food products, you can see their food labels online, which is really nice. So if you're kind of planning or if you're doing like your grocery shopping online right now, you can kind of pull things up to take a look at them. But for these ones, usually the amount of sodium is what I'll look at most closely. And for these, it's only about 20 to 25%, kind of depending which meal. And I usually use that as like a pretty good rule of thumb for a frozen meal. Because when you get higher, it kind of doesn't leave a ton of room for salt from your other foods during the day. And so,
So you
yeah,
want to stay below 20% or?
Usually I'll say like 20 to 25% as like a goal or less for a goal for a frozen meal. It's usually pretty hard to find ones that are much lower than 20% though, just because they do typically have a decent amount of sodium in them. I think they're a great thing to have on hand. A lot of patients will tell me like, they're like, oh, I don't want to buy those because I'm worried that it's like kind of not the healthiest option. But then we talk a little bit more about like, well, what would you pick instead then? And then they tell me like, well, but then I would get takeout or something like that. And so if your alternative is takeout, this is going to be something that's a lot lower in calories. It's going to have probably more like fiber, fruits and veggies. And also like, even if the sodium is, it's not low, but it's going to be lower than something that you're going to get from a restaurant for sure.
How do you feel about like things like HelloFresh and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's, that can be a great option for some folks. I think the cost can be a little on the high side. I know they have a lot of promos though that they'll run, kind of like they'll do like a handful of like free meals. Yeah, exactly. And so those can be really nice because it's like everything is pre-portioned out. They give you like the specific cooking instructions. And then I think, yeah, if you're, I think Heather, you said you live alone. And so you're probably making food for yourself, but usually it's like a couple of I think it's like 2 portions usually. So then you've got kind of like a second meal that you can either put in the freezer, you can put in the fridge to have for leftovers.
And those, I've noticed their calories are a bit higher. So what I do end up doing is I cut even the 2 portions, I cut them in half.
In half. That's a
Again.
great way. That's a great strategy. And then if you're feeling like you want something to kind of like round out that plate or something to help you feel a little bit more full, you can always have like an extra veggie on the side as a way to kind of help yourself feel a little bit fuller if you're trying to limit the calories. So, let's see some other frozen meals. Amy's, the Amy's brand has a lot of like plant-based kind of vegetarian, vegan frozen meals. And their sodium content of these is, again, it's usually around 20 to 25%, but comparatively to some others, that's for frozen meals, that's on the lower side. And you'll notice like got a pretty high fiber content usually too. And then this brand, I don't know how to pronounce it. I feel like it always sounds like evil when I say it, but it's like love spelled backwards. You have some other good options too. They might be a little bit higher in calories, but their sodium content is decent for some frozen meals. I had some questions about meal replacement bars too. And I think, yeah, that's those are something where, yeah, like if your alternative is either, I'm not going to eat and then I'm going to end up kind of like being really hungry later and like snacking a lot later. Or, I'm going to end up getting takeout or something like that. If you're, it's kind of like a convenience thing, or it's going to help you to eat more regularly throughout the day, I think it's okay to use those meal replacement bars every so often. Something that I'll look for with like a meal replacement bar or any sorts of bars is the added sugar content of them. And this is a really nice thing. The food labels now tell us how much sugar has been added to a product. And so this, you can think about this in terms of like, this is the amount of like sugar that they're physically adding to the food or drink. So this is for like a Luna bar. You guys might have seen like on the shelves. It's a type of like a protein bar. Some people will use it as like a meal replacement bar. And so these have 10 grams of added sugars, which is kind of comparatively, it's okay. There are some bars that are going to be lower though. Another brand that I see commonly are these like Think protein bars. These are going to be quite a bit higher in protein compared to the Luna bars. They don't have any added sugars, but what they have is something called sugar alcohol, which is like it's a form of like an artificial sweetener, basically. And some people, this will give them kind of a lot of tummy troubles. So that might be something to be cautious of when you're looking at meal replacement bars and even shakes sometimes too. If there's a lot of sugar alcohols, that can make our bellies not feel so great. Does anyone have any like specific bars that they use or have been eyeing that they have questions about?
I don't know if it's really a meal replacement bar, but I use it for snacks, the Kind bars.
Kind bars, those are great. Yeah. Those are nice because it's mostly just like fruit and nuts. So those can definitely be a good like a very like satisfying or like filling snack. Or you could use it as like, you know, if you are like skipping breakfast, you could have that as like a breakfast thing. Good source of like protein and fiber too.
I've been using the RX bars, which I think are mostly like dates and egg whites.
Yeah, those are a great one too. Those, let me pull up the label for those. I don't think those have any added sugars. Because I think, yeah, they're just kind of like, it's like egg whites, dates, nuts. Let's see here. Are those something that anybody else has tried?
What?
Some RX bars. Here, let me share my screen here. Oops. They look like this. Is that showing? Can you all see that? Yeah, okay. So pull up the panel here. Yeah, so no added sugars. So all the sugar that's in here is going to be from the fruit, or from the like the chocolate or cocoa in there.
And that's a
they
meal
have-
replacement bar? Sorry.
Yeah, yep. Or most folks, yeah, will use them as like a meal replacement bar. They're a little on the higher side in terms of price. A lot of bars end up being kind of on the higher side in terms of price, but in terms of like convenience and such. And again, if like your alternative is like, oh, I'm going to end up like buying food out at a restaurant or something, then the alternative is like to have a bar or something like that can be a good choice.
I give my daughter these. They are
What is it?
Sunbelt
Oh,
bars.
Okay, like the Sunbelt granola bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says added sugars 16.
16 grams. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sodium's only 40.
40. Okay. 40 milligrams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say at 16, I usually kind of like to use like 10 grams or so as like a rule of thumb for added sugars with a food. But again, you know, everything in moderation, too. So
Yeah.
kind of above 10 sometimes gets more in the realm of like a treat kind of a thing
Okay.
versus like a snack. So, let's see. Yeah, Heather, this question might have come from you. Recommend some quick, easy meals for folks who have limited time or access. So I know we talked about like those salad packs are great. Having like, yeah, pre-cut or frozen fruits or veggies. Some of the frozen meals or like low sodium soups or like reduced sodium soups sometimes can be a nice thing to have on hand. And then another thing I really like are the like those like tuna packets. I don't know if you all have seen those, like the Star-Kissed tuna packets. Let me pull those up. And they have a bunch of different flavors. These ones are going to be they're going to have a little bit more, they're going to have some added sodium and probably some added sugars too, but they do have just some plain ones as well. So these are super convenient, kind of even more so than the canned tuna. So a nice portable thing too.
Is that better than like the canned tuna?
I would say it's like it's a similar type of a thing. It's just kind of like a single serving portion that's kind of like like some folks find those easier to use over like a canned tuna. Yeah. And also had some questions about like crunchy snacks. Okay. And yeah, fruits and veggies with dips are some of my favorites. Popcorn is a great snack. It's high in fiber too. And like air popped popcorn, or like the ones that don't have a lot of like added like butter or like salt, are a great option. It's like pretty filling and like relatively low in calories. Nuts can be another good one. They can be higher in calories, but a little portion can be kind of satisfying because of like the fats and proteins that are in there. And then I don't know if anyone's seen like the roasted chickpea snacks. Let me show you these. So they have like more plain flavors and such, but they're pretty high in fiber, and like relatively low in calories, and also have a little bit of protein in them too. They're pretty tasty. They're basically just like, yeah, chickpeas that are roasted so that they're kind of crunchy. Let's see other questions I might have skipped. Someone had asked about food prep recommendations. I think Jennifer, your thoughts about like doing kind of like having a day where you're doing kind of like a batch, like a big batch of like meal prep, or like a day where you're just like chopping up a bunch of veggies. That's a great way to do it. I think it can be helpful to think about if you're like, you know, do you want to make one meal that you're then going to have kind of like the rest of the week, or do you like to have some variety? So then instead you're going to make like a protein or two and like a starch or two, and then kind of mix and match those things. And like, you know, that's where you can add in your frozen veggies to kind of help make your meal, make yourself a whole meal.
Erin, I've been making these little like egg cups. So I get the pre-cut, you know, frittata veggies from the grocery store,
Yeah.
and eggs, and the no sugar bacon. And then, you know, I mix it all up and bake it in muffin tins. And then they're really simple to pop in the microwave, like for breakfast or whatever. And it is good protein. Probably, I don't know what my Fitness Pal would say about the eggs, but you could make them with the egg whites. But in addition to like trying to cut food up and stuff on the weekend so that it's easier to manage during the week, I've found that that's been really helpful, especially for breakfast.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And those I think tend to freeze pretty well too. So if you're not going to eat kind of the whole batch in that week, or at least you want to just have something on hand, that's a great option. They're pretty easy to make. Like you said, you're, you know, getting the pre-cut veggies and mixing up the eggs and stuff. Yeah, it's a great option. Any other questions or thoughts from the group?
I do one other thing.
Yeah.
I do the food list, put it on the fridge, so I know Monday is what I'm having for dinner. Because I find if I don't have that list, I can't decide what I want for dinner, and then I'll just junk it up. We'll have pizza, Chinese, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's on the list, it says this is what's for dinner, that's dinner.
Yeah.
And I find that helps.
Yeah, that can be a great way to do it. And I think it can help with kind of like grocery planning too, because then, you know, like if you're thinking, you know, ahead, like, okay, Monday we're gonna have this, Tuesday we're gonna have that, and then, you know, doing your grocery shopping and planning around that. Yeah, that's a great thing. I know some folks like a little bit more flexibility. They're like, how am I going to know what I'm going to want for dinner on Thursday? But that's where having kind of, you know, those healthy staples around can help you to make some healthy choices.
That's kind of what I do. That's part of the reason I liked HelloFresh. And it's like you said, it's a little bit more expensive. So it's not something that I'm going to be able to do for a while, but I'll have the recipes. So what I can do is like on Sunday, I'll pick I'll pick like 2 meals and I'll make the 2 meals and I'll portion them out. So I'll have them for the week. And that way I can pick, okay, I want this one this day. And if I want to change it up, I can.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, Julia texted me and asked me to let you guys know that Zoom keeps kicking her off. So she's not abandoned us and she's very sorry. I don't know what's happening with her Zoom account, but that is the challenge of technology, obviously. But Erin, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. And all of you for asking such good questions. I think there's a lot of great information in here for people. And so we will definitely share it, with the group and probably on our YouTube channel. So it's easy to access for people that weren't able to join us in the middle of the workday. But this has really been wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your time and your advice. We really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you all. And yeah, I can definitely send like a little summary kind of thing because I know this was like rapid fire information. So
that one. Julia sends out a weekly email so we can include it for the whole group. So that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Great.
thank you all for all your thoughts and such too. Every time I do something like this, I always learn something. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.